Hi everybody. This is what I look like. Yeah, right. This is weird. So, as it turns out, not only do am I on sort of kid duty tonight, dealing with family stuff, but like there was an electrical fire inside the fab, and I don't even know if the classroom has electricity yet. So, and actually, I've been dying to know. Jacob, are you in the classroom? Okay, maybe he'll come off mute later. He'll chat or something. Oh, wait a second. Let's see here. Nope, at home. Okay, good deal. Okay, so hope everything's okay in the building. Um, this is this will be an unusual night. Well, for me anyway. I'm not there in the classroom. I'm here at home. Um, and it's also interesting because this is the sort of the last lecture for the term. So uh, we've got we're doing some Android stuff. Let's see. We'll start off with Prime Minister's questions. We'll talk about the final exam, which is next week. Here we are already at the end, and then we'll spend the rest of the time doing some Android development. There are a couple more features that I want to show off that I think you might find useful in your projects, and so then want to cover that tonight. But otherwise, I don't expect there to be a terrible lot much. So it's actually this is a good opportunity for us to explore maybe some questions that you have about Android development, see if we can get them answered together here in class. And then just another program note. I'm waiting for my daughter to text me saying that she's ready to get picked up at school. Don't know exactly when that's going to happen. So we might be taking an extra long break tonight, more like a half an hour, so just like 15 minutes while I go down to school to get her and pick her back up again. Cool. Okay. Let's start off with Prime Minister's questions. So this week, I hope you've all been focusing on the Android project. I haven't gotten too many questions from people. I hope that's a good sign that people are able to get going with the project and are finding some success. Uh, let's see. The Android quiz was due tonight, and so then hopefully that gave you an excuse to study and figure out the material. But uh, let's get into it. What can I tell you? What questions do you have coming into tonight regarding Android? We'll talk about the final exam next, but in particular Android or your project work or anything else related to Java.
I have a question.
Yep.
I was just wondering, and maybe you'll get into this later, but if there was a specific way or a good way to go about sharing data between activities, or having, yeah, or sending data between activities, or a global, or what the proper thing to do is there.
Yeah, we will get into that, but here, but I'll just tell you now, and then we'll take a look at it a little bit later. So, um, when you use an intent to go between activities, one of the things that you can attach to an intent is an object. And we'll see tonight how to put, I think we'll put a flight into the flight class into an intent and then pass it to an activity. And so then, yeah, I mean, as you've probably imagined, oh yeah, that'd be a pretty important thing to have in your program. There were some things like that in the lecture notes, but tonight we'll dive into the details of how to do that.
Awesome.
Great question.
I had a question about for the pop-ups in case of errors. Do you have a preference for whether that's actually like a pop-up dialogue or a toast or any other kind of thing?
I don't. There were a couple questions about, well, what exactly should my UI look like, or should I have this many buttons? And I don't have answers for that. A big part of this project is to make something that you feel is usable. You all use software, right? So, I hope that some of you, most of you will have an intuitive sense for how that looks like. Um, but in terms of what's acceptable, as long as I can figure it out, and I think either a toast or a separate, dialogue, or showing it on the screen, or something like that, it ought to be fine.
I had one more that's more just random, but is it possible to get another like what our grade is currently before the exam?
Yes, I'm planning on sending out everybody a sort of like, hey, last week, make sure I got your grades right, over the weekend. So I want to give Michael an opportunity to grade the quizzes, sort of get caught up on things. There were still a couple of submissions that came in kind of late. I think a couple we forgot about. Sorry, and then some of them have come in the last week. So yes, and really this is just to make sure that everything was recorded correctly. Um, so yeah, be on the lookout for that. I'll send out a message to the general channel on Slack, and at mention everybody, because yeah, that's an important thing to know. Canvas has all of your quiz grades, but yeah, I haven't figured out how to get the project grades in there without doing it manually, and I'm not going to pay Michael to do that. Rather, I'm going to spend your tuition money to have Michael do that. How are people finding Android development? How's it going? What are some things that you've liked? What are some things that surprised you? Anything that you don't like?
I can say something. I found that I get way too hung up on how things look, maybe. I get very keep rearranging buttons and stuff before I even get into the logic of it. It's been eating away time, but it's enjoyable. I like it so far.
Excellent, good.
I started doing a little bit of research into making like a little animatable thing just for funsies, you know. Like if I manage to knock out the rest of it sooner, I think it'd be fun to see how much stuff I can make move. And it's pretty interesting, like all the options for making stuff kind of like fling all over the place.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I mean, yeah, we've all used Android apps, or we've all used phone apps and stuff, and there's pretty much feature parity in terms of capabilities, um, between iOS and Android and stuff, and yeah, there's APIs out there to do it, and there are libraries that you can use. Yeah, a lot of cool things, and just remember, everybody, on this project you have a lot more freedom, a lot more flexibility. If you want to use other libraries, you can. I think I just advise you that history shows that please get the basic stuff working first, and make sure that's like all good and that you've got like that in GitHub, and then start exploring with other things. I've had a couple students over the years that got way too excited and sort of bit off more than they could chew in the time allotted. So and then like they sort of submit something that was sort of half baked, and it's like, sorry, I can't. I understand what you're doing here, but at the end of the day, it needs to work and then look good and be fun later. Toy, I'll talk about the final exam next. I'll admit it's a cue. That's time to move on. Any other question about Android? Before we dive into other stuff. Nope. Okay. The final exam is next week. Let's see here. I realize I should probably send this out also in on Slack, but just some highlights that I have here. It's administered on Canvas, so there's no paper involved. It's on there. However, it's only available during class time. So with a final exam, I really try to put the same constraints on it that I would have in class, meaning that it starts. I think it opens up at like 5:40 p.m. or something. So the intent. So let me just talk about next week, and I'll talk about more details with the final exam. Next week is our final gathering together. We will do the final exam. The final exam comes in two parts. There is an individual written part, and then there is a group discussion with a written output part. So everybody is required to take the final exam and take the final exam when it's available. If you need special accommodation, either because of DRC or because of, hey, you got an appointment you can't move, or you got a sick kid to take care of it, please reach out. I can make exceptions, but the idea here is that everybody takes the final exam at the same time to get it over with. The written part is essentially 2 quizzes. So there's something like 6 questions or something. Um, as far as content of the written part, any topic covered in the course is fair game. Whether or not it was actually a core part of the projects, all the content is fair game. It is open book and open notes. That being said, I'm not going to make you print off all the PDFs, so you may use any URL that begins with my homepage. So anything that is published on my site, including all of the PDFs, including the homework assignments and things like that. Although I think you only need the PDFs. Is fair game. However, no other internet-based resources can be used. So no looking at stuff up in the Stack Overflow, and I feel like I have to say this. Shouldn't have to say this, but I do, right? So no Google searches, no Stack Overflow, no um, you know, no chatting with your friends, right? Duh. But basically, the constraint that you have is all the class material. Um, we'll have something like 40 minutes to do it. It's timed on Canvas, and that's usually plenty of time for most people. So the best way to prepare for this is to refamiliarize yourself with the notes. I sort of recommend that you sort of skim through things to remind yourself maybe of topics that you haven't used in a while, or maybe there's something that you might have skipped over the first time. Well, now's the time to kind of go through and to figure out what's there. Because again, all the content is fair game for the final exam.
A quick question, David.
Yeah.
So with the whole 40-minute timed, is it 40 minutes as of like when it's posted 5:40 or as of when we each individually start it?
I don't know. It depends on Canvas. So right, I mean,
Oh,
if
okay.
you show up at 5:45, or rather, if you start at 5:45, it's probably
Because I assume if it's
uh,
like structure like the quizzes are based off of when you started. So that's why I
yeah.
was just wondering if like, oh, maybe it's like some people end up starting a little later because I know class time is really long, but yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. So it is a Canvas quiz, so that's probably the rules. I think
Mhm,
the way I have it set up is that it's only available
mhm,
between like 5:40 and
mhm.
whatever that is, 6:20 or 6:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, hey, someone. Well, I was gonna say get stuck in traffic, but it's not gonna happen. Hey, if someone gets late, just IM me and IM me on Slack, and we'll make sure it works, right? I don't want to penalize anybody, but the whole idea is that it is a coordinated activity. Unlike the quizzes, which are asynchronous, you can sort of do it whenever you want. The final exam is everybody coming together.
Okay, I see. All right. So the
Yep.
intention is that we all, at least the intention is that we all start at our 5:40. And
Yes.
is it that you want us to join in at 5:30, like in the
Please.
class, and then
Yep.
we have 10 minutes before we start? Okay, cool.
Right. Yeah. Just sort of getting everything together. And
Mhm.
here again, I don't know. Maybe this is silly, but for me, like when it's an in-person final exam, it's really quite structured, and I'm all serious, Dave, and everything like that, and I pass out the papers and pencils down, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what, Anyway, it makes me feel like a professor, right? Everybody should get those blue composition books, right? Um, so put on my tweed jacket, get elbow patches. Anyway, um, yeah, so that's like the written portion, and again, what let me look at the syllabus. The final exam is worth, I think it's 12%. Let me go look at the. Okay. Yeah, the final exam is worth 12%. So, as you may recall from the first class, one of my core tenets of how I structure the course is that the final exam is important, but it won't determine whether or not you pass or fail, or whether or not how great your grade is. As a matter of fact, the Android program is worth more than 12% of your grade, and so then if you got to choose where you're going to focus, make sure your Android program is really good, even if it means that hey, maybe you miss a couple points off the final exam. But ideally, hopefully, you're all in a good place where you can both do a good job that you feel awesome about on the Android project, and then also have time to review the content that we've covered this term, so that you can be well prepared for the final exam. So that's the written portion. And then there's also a group portion. The group portion involves no coding. You've done enough group coding. Instead, it's a discussion around a specific topic. It's not the kind of thing you can study for. It's something that I think will all be you'll all have knowledge about, that it'll all be relevant to you. And really, it's meant to just give you one less opportunity to collaborate with your fellow students, not on programming, but on topics that are still related to computer science. And I'll keep you in suspense for what that really is. Oh, and in between that, I'll have some parting thoughts and final words and things like that. One last thing. Assuming that like the building isn't on fire next week, I plan on being on campus for that. And the with the Oregon mask mandate being lifted, I realize that masks are still required on campus and in the classroom. However, if anyone would like to come down to campus to take your final exam, or see your fellow students, or meet me in person, the beer's on me. This is for me personally, the opportunity to be able to interact more in public is something we're celebrating. I've met like 3 people in the class in person. And so if you'd like to take advantage of the fact that we have some more social mobility and freedom, we can do the group part of the exam with drinks in hand. So, an option if you want to take advantage of it, but just to be crystal clear, your in-person participation has no bearing on any part of your grade whatsoever. The course is still attend anywhere, and that certainly applies to the final exam. So feel free to join in person if you'd like. Okay. Any questions about the final exam or what to expect next week? Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah. Let's do some Android.
I have one
So,
question about the
sure.
final, just real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to look at our own code?
Oh, good question. Um, hmm. Um, and the reason I'm thinking is like, how much of an advantage will that be? That might be some advantage. Um, I'll say yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can look at any code that you have contributed to GitHub, or my GitHub repository too, if you're like, oh, I'm really familiar with VS Code. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be okay. I don't think it's going to give you that much of an advantage though. When I think about it, trying to think of the questions. Maybe there's one of them that would help you with.
Okay.
And let's see here. But please don't write any. But you can't. Okay, I'm sorry. You can. And okay, this is going to be kind of lawyerly of me, but so there's a nuance there. Um, because there may be questions. Okay, let's give it away. There may be questions about APIs or maybe language syntax or something like that. While you can look at code, please don't write any code and have the IDE tell you, what certain APIs are, or what certain language syntax means, right? So, yep, you
Right.
can read code, but please don't write any code, or don't get any help from IntelliJ in the final exam.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Great question. Okay. Oops. Okay. Well, so last week we started writing an Android application. And I'm going to run the Android application here in Android Studio just so we can remember what it looked like. So let's see here. I believe it's launching now. So I'm going to get rid of that thing. So I'm building my Android application. Oops, it's been a while. Okay. And so then it's rebuilding and it'll eventually deploy to the emulator. And then it'll start up the application. First deploy of the night is a little slow as everything gets loaded into the cache. Oh, I just run tests instead. What did I do? Yeah, I did. Sorry. Didn't actually deploy it. Here we go. This is the Android application. It displays a label, a static string. It's got one button that launches the calculator. This launches a different activity that has a very simple calculator that has two text fields. So you can say 5 plus 6. You click the equals button. That prints the sum of 11. And that's all it does right now. Let's take a look. Let's remind ourselves with the various pieces, parts of the code. So our business logic. So each one of those screens. So both this screen that has the calculator, and then this main screen that has the launch button, are called activities, and there are Java classes and there are XML files that represent each one of those activities. The Java files contain the business logic for the activities. Sorry, the logic business. Yeah, the logic for the activities, and you can also navigate to the view, the design for that screen. Oops, that was not what I wanted. Activity main layout. And so this is XML that describes the layout. And this layout can also, Android Studio also allows you to view that XML here in design view. And this gives you the ability to visually inspect and lay out and configure the view. And so, as we saw, the XML file corresponds to various widgets, and each one of these widgets at runtime is represented by a Java object. A Java object can be accessed here in the activity. And we see this in several ways. We represent the entire activity itself as using this special R class. So R is a class that is generated by the Android build system that then references certain things. Is R for resource, and as we saw, the resources are actually files here in this source main res directory. And so you've got layout, so you've got something called activity main. Well, that corresponds to the activity main XML file, which is the one that we were viewing just here. So we'll see this again a couple times tonight where we reference these resources. And again, this is just some sort of magic glue that allows the Java code here, which has the logic, to interact with the UI widgets. Now, one of the things that we configured in the UI widgets was a button. The button is the thing that launches the calculator, and so it's got the text launch calculator. And these are all these properties of the button. And the properties are available in design view over here on the right. And so then we saw that we could search for various properties like text. There's like a gazillion of them. And here is the here's that one thing. I have to admit personally, there's I prefer I find the XML a little easier to read. There's like so much stuff here because there's only certain things that are set. And so I often find myself just working in the XML to sort of figure out what it is that I'm looking at here. But there was another property that we looked at, which was the on-click property of the button. And what on-click does is it says, well, when this button is clicked, here is the method that I want to invoke. And that method is actually declared on the activity in which the, activity class associated with that XML activity. And so this launch calculator is essentially the same thing as the on-click listener that associated with that button, and so it has the same signature, meaning that is public and void, and it takes one argument, which is a view, which is the thing that is clicked. In this case, it's the button that's passed in. So what this launch calculator method does is it then launches that calculator activity. And the way we do this, so again, just to see it in action, when you click launch calculator, it launches the calculator. And what this does is it transitions activities from one to another. And the way we do that is the way we transition is that we use something called an intent. I think of it as an intent to perform some activity, perform some action. And so you give it a couple of things. You give it, first of all, the context from which it's being launched, which is, actually, I don't need that main activity anymore. I can just say this, which is the main activity object in which it is, from which it is launched. And then we are launching another activity, and so we just give it the .class for that activity. And so that creates this intent object. And then we call the start activity method, which is inherited from its superclass, which goes off and says, hey, here's an intent, go execute that intent. And as you probably learned about in the lecture notes, intents can be used in addition to using intents to launch other activities. They can be more generic, just things like saying, "Hey, I have an image I want to edit it," or "Hey, I want to send an email." And what this allows your application to do is it is become decoupled from the applications that will ultimately send an email or ultimately display that image, or whatever, which is nice. It abstracts a lot of things away from that individual application, and then lets the operating system determine what should happen next, because you don't really care which email client you use. You just want to send an email right now. Now, if we look at the calculator activity, we've got a lot of the same. Here we have another activity, and remember we created the activity using new, and so then there. Actually, we're probably not going to create another one tonight, but you can do this, and they've got lots of templates there. We're just going to use base activities, I think, in this class. And here, the activity. Let's take a look at the XML. Here, we use a linear layout to, maybe it's easier if I go to design mode. Here we have our calculator, and it's made up of several widgets, as we can see over here. The top is a constraint layout, and then it's got a linear layout, which is this box here that contains these other widgets like the left operand, a text for plus, a right operand, a button for equals, and then another field for sum. And this is how UIs are composed in Android, and actually many other UI frameworks, where you have objects that represent the widgets, and then you have other objects that represent how those widgets are displayed or laid out or arranged with regards to each other. And what this does is it gives you this nice toolbox of then things that you can put together and plug together to ultimately get the UI that you want to display. So this is the layout for your widgets. Notice that that most widgets have an ID associated with them, and then they have other configuration such as, okay, this is an input type of number. Your logic, well, let's see here. So I guess for that, I guess the most interesting thing here is that the button, again, we have the on click. When the button is clicked, this calculate sum method is invoked. What calculate sum does is it goes and it gets the two numbers that were entered into the UI and displays their sum. And the way that you get the numbers here in the UI, so you've got 4 and 5, the way you get those in Java code is by using this find view by ID method, which actually goes out and gets the Java object that represents that UI widget. In this case, it's the left operand, and the way you reference that is say R, again, the magical resources. Now we're going to use the ID And that comes directly from this little piece of magic right here, where you say at plus ID, a left operand, and so then all that gets compiled down to a reference held in this r.id.left operand field. That then gives you an instance of the edit text object, which, yeah, by the way, is what you here's right operand. That's an edit text. Oops, go back up. So you get the left operand, the right operand, and then these are just Java objects, right? So you can invoke methods on it like get text, which returns, I don't know, some sort of like editable object, and you can say give me the toString for that, parse it, and now you're just doing Java, right? So this should be familiar to you. You've been doing it since week 1. So you're just doing Java code to finally get your sum, and now what you want to do is to display it is you get the view, the text view in this case, that's called sum. And this is the thing that is over there on the right of the equal sign. And then you set the text to a string. And so then what we learned about here last week is just these fundamental building blocks of an Android application. How to create your widgets, arrange your widgets, how to interact with your widgets in Java code. So now that I reviewed all of that, oh, the sun's going down. It's getting dark here. I'll adjust the lighting shortly. What questions do you have? Is there anything else that you want me to cover before we dive into sort of some more advanced things? What can I tell you? It's funny when I teach in the summer, last 2 summers that we've been in lockdown, I haven't been able to go into campus. I've been in my backyard teaching al fresco because it's like I don't bother anybody inside. And of course it's in summer, and so like it's June and stuff, and so it stays light until about 9 o'clock at night. But those first couple of lectures that go really long, like I find myself in the dark by the end. So anyway, now I'm just poorly lit. Cool. Okay. Well, I hope all that made sense and sounded familiar. Now let's do some more stuff. So here's what I want to do. What I want to do next. I want to, yeah. Let's actually, yeah, we've only been going for 35 minutes. I want to add. I want on the main page. Oops. Oh, sorry. Was there a question in chat? Yes, ready for advanced things. Great. Good deal. On the main page here, I'm gonna get rid of this this text. And what I want is a list of sums that have been calculated before. And so the first thing that I'm gonna do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a widget that displays a list of things. So we're going to see some new classes. So it's mentioned also in the lecture notes, but there's something called a list view. So a list view is a potentially scrollable list of of other views, of other widgets. So it's a list of widgets. It's a view group. It's I guess it's a layout. It's a list. It's a view of views. And you create one of these things with a list view. So I'm going to add one of those here in Android Studio. I'm going to add to my main activity. So let me get one of these. I'm going to add it here. I'm just trying to design view. Let's see here. Where is there a list view? You know what? I might not. I wonder if search list view. Oh, there it is. Cool. let's put it there. And okay, I gotta play all the games with the layout. Oops. Make it a little bit smaller. And then let's put all the constraints on there. So I put that there, and I draw that there, and I draw that there, and I draw that there. Cool. And I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Just gonna move that. Weird. Okay. So there I've got like this list view. And I am, well, let's just see what that looks like right now. So I'm going to we need to, I'm just going to redeploy. Actually, meanwhile, while that's going on, let's just look at the code that was added. Down here at the bottom, it's interesting that it's at the bottom, but whatever. Okay, I have a list view. There's really not that much interesting stuff there. It talks about the constraints. So remember what these constraints are. This is basically saying, hey, here's where it's positioned relative to other widgets. So its bottom is constrained to the top of the text view, which that's this thing up here. So the hello again Java class, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we've got some horizontal and vertical bias. Well, that's all really neat. And okay, I guess it is kind of nice the design view took care of all of that for me. Actually, did this relaunch yet? It very well may have. There's nothing in there, so I guess that's not terribly surprising. Maybe this is a little bit lower on the screen. Okay. Well, it seemed to work. I guess that's the important thing. So I've got this list view, and here, and so now I want to populate it with something. So if we go back to the documentation about list view here, list views are populated via something called a list adapter. So the whole idea is that the view, it knows how to display the list view knows how to display other views, but it needs to be told which views to display, right? So basically I want to give it a bunch of numbers, and so I have to provide it with, oh, hey, here is a bunch of basically like text widgets that display some numbers. And the way I do that is I set set the adapter on that. Now, this is all covered in the lectures. There's this whole class hierarchy of various types of adapters. They give you a lot of flexibility. Basically, at runtime, you could put in whatever view you want there. You could have something that has everything from like buttons and images and text and editable stuff, whatever. But most likely, you want to have the same kind of thing, the same kind of object in your list view, which is what we want here. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to populate the list view with what's called an array adapter. And let me just take a look at that. So when you have a bunch of objects that are like all of the same type, or actually if you have a bunch of text, this is probably the easiest way to do it. If you look at the array adapter class, array adapter. Here we go. It implements, well, it is a base adapter, and so then it implements list adapter. And right, you can use it with a list view. And so what it has is a bunch of objects, an array of objects, and then what it does is it creates views by calling object to string, and then placing it in a text view, which pretty much matches what we want, right? We just want like a bunch of numbers in there, and you can do some customization by overriding the get view. We're not going to do that. And so then between the list view and the array adapter, I think we'll be able to display the numbers that we want to display. But first, what we need to do is we need to populate this stuff. So what we're going to do in our main activity is we are going to add a field that stores all of the sums that we've seen. And we're going to, oops, we're going to spell the word private correctly. And we're going to use an array adapter to store that. It's going to be an array adapter of, well, I guess integers. And we're going to call this sums equals new array adapter. Great. And oh, we probably need to. Okay, we probably can't initialize this here in the constructor. We probably need to initialize it on create. But we do want to store it in this field because then we're going to use it later. So our sums is going to be a new array adapter. This takes several things. The first thing is the context, which is just sort of like the parent object, if you will. So it's going to be this, the activity that we're in. And then it takes this resource ID. Now, this is a little piece of magic, which is kind of hard for me to explain. What it is a reference off to another object, which is used as, what do I want to call it? Like the prototype, the factory. I can't explain it very well, but I know what the answer is. So you say, there is this class. There's the R class, which is the class for the. Oops, did I spell that right? Yep, that's not right. Hello. Oh, interesting. Android.r. I thought that was the name of it.
You got the I and the O flipped.
Thank you. There we go. There is a class called Android.r, which is a bunch of resources that are global to not your application, but to the Android development kit, essentially. And so then this has all sorts of things. So like ID, I think it's r.id. No, I'm sorry, it's r.layout. Right. And then they have all sorts of all sorts of these prototype objects. The one that you use the most is a simple list item 1, which is basically just a UI widget, which then the array adapter will use to populate each one of the elements. So you create the array adapter there, and then you have your sums, and now we need to associate this array adapter with the ListView widget. And so then let's call that ListView, and then we use the find view by ID, and this time it will be the view that we just created there. So I'm just looking for it. I guess we can go this way to get it. We want this thing right here. Oh, we did not give it an ID, so we can assign it one. We can say Android. Note. I want to say Android ID, and plus equals that, and we'll call it sums, just like that. And now there's r.id.sums, sums. Great. So that'll give us the list view object, and now we say list view dot set adapter, and that will be our array adapter. This dot sums. Putting this there. Oops. And so what this does is it goes off and gets the widget and says, aha, you will be populated with the information from this array adapter. Now, let's run this one more time. We're still not going to see anything, I don't think, but we'll make sure that everything works okay. This is the way the Android API works. You've got this combination of doing the layout of creating your widgets, and then you have Java code that wires everything together and configures everything the way you want to have it configured. Okay, again, we have a list here, but there's nothing in it. Let's put some stuff in it. And the way we put stuff in it is by populating the array adapter. So this dot sums dot add. Sure, and we can add some objects. So we can say 1 and just say 2 and 3. Oops. 2 and 3. So now we put some stuff in there. We'll launch it one more time. And there we have it. Now we have this this list view with 1, 2, and 3, because now it has information in it. I kind of want to see it scroll, so I'm going to put in a whole bunch of stuff. For int I equals 0, while I is less than, let's say, 50, I plus plus. Oops, I didn't like there yet. This dot sums dot add I. Let's just see what that looks like. Nice, 0, and it's got does it have a scroll? What is this? Is that the scroll? Oh, there you go, I have to click and drag. Yep, there it is. Neat. So there we've got all of our sums in a list view. So let me review that one more time, and then we'll take a quick break. So we wanted to have this. Oops, we wanted to have this list of sums here. Eventually, well, we'll populate it a little differently after the break. So we added something called a list view to our main activity. And so this list view is something that displays other widgets in a list. As you can see, it was scrollable when it gets big enough. And the way you populate the widgets in that list view is by using well, what was it called? An adapter. Here we have an array adapter, which is a simple array of objects that then whose toString method is invoked and placed inside one of these simple list items that you created the array adapter with. And then we went and got the list view and configured its adapter to be the sums. And then as you add stuff to that to the adapter, to the array adapter, it gets displayed in the list view.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when that list of widgets is created, are IDs for the widgets also created, or is there a way to reference each widget in the
Good question.
list?
Yes, and we will see how to do that in a little bit. I'm guessing that you want to be able to do something like click on a row and have it do something based on that. Am I thinking correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yep, and we'll see how to do that in a little bit.
Cool.
Nice. Okay. Let's see. Check. I haven't heard from my kid. Nope. And okay, so let's take a 10-minute break and be back at 6:30. Okay, we're back. So before the break, we added this list view to the main screen. So we populated it with a bunch of statically generated numbers. Not very interesting. Instead, what we want to, or what we're going to do next, is we want to launch the calculator. We want to put in some sum. And then what we want to do is we want to return this number here back to the previous screen so that we can display it in the list. Now, there's two phases of implementing. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to add a new button to the calculator that basically says, "Hey, I'm done with the calculator. Please, bring me back to the previous screen and display the sum, and actually send the sum back to the previous screen, and we'll display it that way." And in order to do this, we're going to leverage some features of the activities that we haven't seen before. So the first thing we're going to do is going to add a new button to our calculator. Let's see, our calculator activity, and we're going to go to the layout, and we're going to add a new do it here. We're going to add a new button down here, and we're going to position it. Yeah, nope. We're going to position that. Oops. Let's zoom out just a little bit. There we go. We're going to position it so it lays out nicely. We're going to chase it around the screen. Cool. There's our button. And we're going to call this, we're not going to call it button. We're going to call it, there we go. We're going to call it return to main. And it's probably complaining because it's not a resource. I can't fix it from here, can I? That is kind of obnoxious. So can I fix it from here? Yes, fix. And we'll call it return to main. Very nice. So got other things to complain about. All right, not right now. Okay, so it's got the return to main button. Well, let's also add the on click. So on click, and we're going to call it return to main. Right like that, and it's, oops, it's not going to take, probably because calculator doesn't have one of those yet. Why didn't it like that? Return to main. Okay, cool, and it's probably going to complain about that. And so, oh, it doesn't have an auto fix? Okay then, fine. If I go to the code, can I auto fix it here? Provide feedback. Oh yeah, create, return to main and calculator activity. Excellent. Cool. Okay, well, eventually what this is going to do is it's going to return the sum, but actually the way, but in the meantime, well, let's launch it just to make sure that it works. Launch calculator, return to main, does nothing. What I will do right now to return to main, let's see here, finish the activity. Yes. So an activity, when you want to dismiss an activity, you call the finish method, which basically means, close this off and then it'll display whatever is sort of previously on the stack of activities. So I can launch the calculator and I return to main and it comes back to main. Okay. So I've got that much working. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to, excuse me, I want to send data back from this activity to whatever invoked it. It's important that that activities be as loosely coupled as possible. Probably for for definitely for this simple Android example, and probably even your projects, you'll be using activities very much. But it's always a good idea to make sure that your code, just like your objects, do one thing and do it well. And so you don't necessarily want your main activity and your calculator activity to depend on each other too much, to know too much about each other. So when it comes to passing data between activities, instead of like one activity invoking a method on another, instead you pass data back and forth using, well, intents. So what we're going to do when we return to main is we're going to do something called set. We're going to set what's called the result of the activity. So an activity has a notion of like a result. And well, there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, there is the result code, which I think I covered this in the lecture. There are different. You've got result okay, result canceled. I forget what first user means. We want result okay, which means that it returned a there's a sum here. And then you can also pass data back in an intent. So we're going to create an intent, and in this case, let's see here. Yeah, we don't have anything. We're not launching. We're not really performing an action here. We're just using this intent as a placeholder to for the data that we're sending back. Now, an intent has something called extra data, which you can, I guess, put. Yeah. So it has this put extra method on it. Put extra. Oops. Which has all sorts of. It was overloaded to take all sorts of different things. The first argument is the name of the information that you're passing back. It's basically named values here. So it's a hash map. It's a map of named values, and we are going to have what we're going to do is here on this activity we're going to have a data value called extra sum, and this is going to be a constant that is defined here. And I don't know, let's call it sum. It doesn't really matter what it is because we have this constant here. And we are going to put the sum in it, which means we need to store the sum right here when we calculate it. And we're going to need that field. Sum. Okay. Cool. And so what this does is when we return to main, in addition to just finishing the activity, before it does, oh sorry, yeah, before it does, need to put that intent in there. Actually, I'm not gonna call it intent. Instead, I'm gonna call it data because that's really what it is. I think that's a little more expressive in terms of what it is. So we just have like this little data object that contains the sum that is passed in. Or rather the sum that has been computed. And let's just try this to see what happens. What's the calculator? And we'll have 4 plus 8 equals 13. And oops, get rid of the keyboard. We'll click return to main. Well, that seemed to be successful. Nothing blew up. So what we did is we created that intent. We said, well, this intent has this extra data field this data field called extra sum with the value sum. And yep, the activity is has an okay result. And oh, by the way, it has this data that's being sent back, and we're going to finish it. So this activity now knows how to return the latest, the value of sum back to the caller. However, the thing that launches this object doesn't do anything yet. And so now we're going to look at some other things that an activity can do. When it launches when it launches another activity, it can then say, wait, launch it in a special way so that I can capture that result. And so then the way it does that is instead of saying start activity, you use a different start activity. You say start activity for result, which appears to be deprecated now. That's neat, but not something that we're going to talk about right now. And what you do is you send it in what's called a request code. So this is a constant, which is unique to your application, that basically says, well, hey, here is for this activity that I'm starting, here is the result that I'm expecting back. And so we'll just call this, I don't know, get sum from calculator. Get sum from calculator. And we'll create this constant, and it doesn't really matter what it is. Give me 42, as all good constants should be. And so now, when I start it, I'm going to say, hey, start this activity. I'm launching the calculator activity, and keep track of the fact that this thing might return a result, and the the constant, the what is that called again? The request code. I guess the request that I'm making is getting the sum from the calculator. So you've got to do this when you've got to do this start activity for result when you launch it. But this just launches the calculator, starts up the activity, it does its thing. When it finishes, a method on and main activity reappears again. You what happens is that the on activity result method is invoked. I don't think we need to call the superclass one. Oops, what is it saying? Oh, it should. Okay, I guess it does. It wants me to. Well, thank you, Android. That probably does some bookkeeping or something like that. So, uh, on activity result is another lifecycle method of the activity, and this thing is invoked with a couple of things. There's the request code, which I believe is what we passed in here. Yes, that is the request code. The result code, which actually turns out to be the thing that we set right here with result OK. That is the result code. And then the intent that was passed, in which case is this intent is going to be there. So actually, the first thing we should do is make sure that that we're processing the request that we think we do. So if the request code equals what gets some from calculator, so we've got this, and the result code equals result OK. I guess and the data isn't null. Oops, what is it? What does it say in there? Is always false. Oh, I wonder where that is. Huh, does anybody see why IntelliJ thinks that that's always going to be false? Oh, because it's nullable? No. Huh. Did I get something wrong? Result. Oh, okay, yeah, request code. This should be result code. Sorry. Okay, thanks, IntelliJ. That was actually helpful. That was a bug, and that would have been a nasty bug. I've had this happen before, where it's like request code and result code look so much alike. So if all these things are true, so if I'm being invoked, if this on activity result method is being invoked as a result of getting the sum from the calculator, and if the activity returned that, yep, I gave you an okay result, and the data isn't null, what we will do is we will say this dot sums dot add, and then we'll say data dot get extra. Oh, sorry, get double extra, get int extra. Shoot, what did we put in there? Calculator. Put extra this dot sum, so I guess that'd be an int. Okay. Get int extra and calculator activity dot. Oops. We want extra sum. We want this to be package protected. So extra sum. What doesn't it like? Oh, I think there's an extra parameter here, isn't there? Yeah, default value of 0, which shouldn't be the case, but whatever. Okay. I don't want to populate the sums anymore with that 0 through 50. Instead, I want to populate it when, again, the onActivity result method is invoked after the calculator activity has been finished. And if the right information is passed in, go and get the extra information that was passed in with that intent data and put that in the sums. Let's give it a whirl. Okay, so there's nothing there. Actually, sorry, let me go back. Right now, I don't have anything in my list. I launch my calculator. I will say 4 plus 5 equals 9. I'll return to main, and poof, I've got 9. Let's do it again. I will say 1 plus 2 equals 3. Return to main. Now I've got 3 up there. So this is how you can pass data back and forth between activities. Let me go through that one more time. Okay. We did a couple of things. First, we added the new button to the calculator activity. I don't think we need to go through that again. But what was more interesting is what we did on the calculator activity Java code and the main activity. We added this return to main with it, which is invoked when the button is clicked. And what do? We create this intent that has some data that we want to pass back to the caller from this activity. And so we say, hey, this intent has some extra data associated with it. And it's the name of the extra data is sum, and it got the value of the integer sum that was calculated here as part of this activity. And then we say, hey, this activity has a result of this, and then we're going to finish ourselves. We're going to say, hey, we're done, so dismiss this activity. After that calculator activity is finished, the Android runtime will bring up the main activity again, and it will invoke this on activity result method. First thing you gotta do is call the super classes on activity result method, which probably just again does some bookkeeping. Who cares what it does? It does, you just need to do it. And then we say, hey, listen, the data that was passed in includes the request code, which by the way we used here when we launched the activity. And then if the result of launching the activity was okay and it passed back some data, go get that int that we added from the data and put it into the sums array adapter. I know it went by pretty fast. Any questions, observations, ponderings?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this procedure will work with more complicated data types like objects as well.
We're gonna see that next.
Oh, okay. And then sorry, the activity result that is just invoked whenever an activity goes back to main, whenever just main is called
Yes.
again after the onCreate.
Yes. Maybe maybe it's smart enough to know that, hey, listen, only after you've started an activity for a result. I don't know. But you can imagine that you have the main activity, you could launch lots of different activities, some of which have results, some of which don't. So I don't know if it'll be invoked every time. Actually, it'll probably only be invoked when there's when there is a request code. So if I had something else that just started an activity with no result, then this thing probably doesn't get invoked.
Okay, thanks.
Probably. I don't know. We could try it and find out.
And then, sorry, and just one more. It's okay to use a deprecated method. Is that
Yeah.
Okay.
Because yes, and as long as it works and it seems to work. The Android API changes pretty frequently. And to be brutally honest, I teach this course like once a year, once every 6 months. I'm not going to try to keep up with all those changes. And so then, yeah, it's perfectly fine. And this is why we kind of use an older API like level 29 and and things like that. For this course, yes, it's fine. If you want to do a little extra research and figure out the right way to do it, I'm sure actually we could probably find out what the right way is supposed to be. Maybe it's easier. Maybe it's like completely different. I've got no idea. Oops. Getting results from an activity. This is kind of another thing where technically that API is deprecated, but look, like the documentation talks about it. You know, all the okay, here we go. I strongly recommend that uses the activity results API introduced in Android X activity and fragment. Yeah, and I mean this kind of shows, you know, when I put this stuff together, you know, a couple years ago, that was the right way to do it. Now there's right, you can do register for activity results, which gives you a callback. I was kind of browsing through this the other day. Um, give it a try. You know, hey, if you want to play with the new APIs, great. Otherwise, you know, as we just saw, this works. You're not going to lose any points if you're using old API as long as it works.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Nice. Okay, let me. I will. Let's see here. Send the sum back to the main activity and display the sum in the list view. Okay. Now, what other nice piece of functionality that I'd like to be able to do is click on one of these numbers, and as you can see, you click, and it looks like it's responding, but we're not doing anything. So let's see how to do something with it. Oops. Actually, turns out this is relatively straightforward. So list view. So sorry. Here I am. I was looking right at it, but I didn't explain where it was. I'm in the main activity. This is the Java object that represents the list view, right? So this whole thing is a Java has a Java object behind it is the list view here, and we set the adapter here. But if we want to respond to clicking on the items, we set what's called a click set. Oh, so many of them. On item click listener. So when you click in the lecture, we learned about events and listeners and the handling and all that kind of stuff. So ListView has an on item click listener, so you can create one of these new on item click listener. It has a method on item click, and so this is invoked when the method is clicked. And it so let's see here. It gives you the adapter view, which is the list view itself, right? I think it's going to be that's what that is. The view is the actual view widget, which is clicked on, and then I believe int is the actually how about we just go look at this on item click listener. I believe int is the value, but I don't remember what that long L thing is. So let me just go find that. Adapter view on item click listener. Oh yeah, position and then ID. Okay, I don't think that ID is interesting. I think what's most interesting to us. Oh, we want the value. How do we get the value? Oh, no, position. Gotcha. Okay. So position is the elements, and so then what we do, and this might be a little confusing because they're both ints. So I'm not going to call that I'm going to call it index. That's what makes sense to me. And what was that long? What was that long thing again? The ID. Yeah, we're not going to use that. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to pop up a little toast. Do I have a toast method here? I don't. So we'll say toast, create a new toast. Ooh, look at that. That's neat. Thank you. I want the text to be clicked on some, we're gonna have a sum variable. Sure, make it short. Oops, nope, I don't want sums. I want sum. And then sum is going to be this dot sums, dot this dot sums. This isn't going to be the outer class, which is main activity. This dot sums. And by the way, if you're struggling to remember what this syntax is all about, it's the I believe it's the reflection lecture has a whole exploration of inner classes, anonymous inner classes, and things like that. And so that explains where that syntax is. Then you can say get item imposition index. So get item again. The sums is this array adapter, and so if you want to get the nth element of that array, you say get item. Right, get item will return an integer when you have an array adapter of integers. So that gives you the sum, and now we use that sum variable in the text on which you clicked. So, and that will pop it up in a little toast. Actually, let's make this long so we can see it better. So now let's rerun the app. Launch the calculator. And here we'll have 4 plus 5 equals 9. We will send that back. Now we've got a 9, and when we click on the 9, there's your toast. Clicked on sum 9. So this is how you respond. This is how you can, and actually, let's just make this a lambda. Meh. This is how you can respond to a click on an element of an array list by setting the on-item click listener on the on the list view, not the array list, on the list view, and then by doing what you need to do. And so you can get the index of the item that was clicked in the list, there, and then you can say, hey, give me the give me that sum, and then do whatever you're going to do with it, right? And this could be launching an activity, or or whatever you're going to do with that piece of data in there. Perfectly easy. Just clean up some of those imports. Okay. Any other questions about clicking on listeners?
I have another question.
Yep.
Is there, I guess this might just go back to what we did before, but before we sent data back from an activity, is there a way to do an on create with data?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, let's let me save these changes. And then yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea. Yeah. So see here. Pop up a toast. When the user clicks on an item in the list view. Great question. So let me see if I can remember how to do that off the top of my head. You in the intent, you can set intent. You can put extra data here. And so then let's have this be calculator activity, and then we'll call it initial left value and left operand value. Let's do that. And so then let's create that constant here. And then this will be, I don't know, 17. Who cares? Oops, oh, string. Initial left operand value. Okay. And then this needs to have a value. So let's just put that in as, well, 17. Number seems to be on my mind. So the intent that we use to launch the activity, you can put in extra data. Okay? And so we'll launch it from there. So now here in the calculator, I believe, let's see, we're gonna set the content view. Somewhere is there a get intent? Yeah, I think what happens is that that intent then is available to the activity. This is the intent it was launched with. So I'm pretty sure that we can say the following. We can say initial left operand equals intent dot get int extra, And then we can say initial left operand value, default value of 0. And then we can say, we can just get our left operand again. And now we can say left operand dot set text with string dot value of left op initial left operand. So what I believe I've just done here is I've passed so you know the intent, I've gotten the intent that the activity was created with. Unless that comes with the bundle? No, it doesn't come with the bundle. I think I get the intent that way. Then we'll get the value out, and then we'll just set the text of the left operand to be that. Let's give it a try. Which calculator? 17. That was me being surprised at myself. Yeah. So let's make this a little bit more interesting. Why have it always be 17? Well, so we can do that. Actually, is there a? Sorry, I'm gonna let's go. Let's have some fun with this to explore this API. I think I'm gonna split this into declaration and assignment. So I think, can you say intent? Is there a has extra? Has extra. There you go. So if it has initial, if it has extra, let's set that. Okay. So now here, we'll get rid of that line, but let's replace. Oh, I don't know. This is kind of silly, but instead here, instead of when you click on it, just making it toast, let's launch the yeah, let's launch the calculator with that sum again. And so then let's just copy this. So we'll get rid of the 17. Instead, we'll just put in the sum here. And let's see what happens there. So initially, great, we have a value, 4 plus 5 equals 9. Return to the main. Now we click on 9. Oh, look, there's 9. And so 9 plus 4 equals 13. Let's go back again, I got 13. Nope, anyway, so I guess this kind of shows launching an activity and result to clicking a value. London, did that answer your question? Did that
Yeah,
give you some
very
ideas how to apply
helpful.
that?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
nice, cool. That was fun. Okay, so let's see here. Pass data to the calculator when it is actually calculator activity when it is launched. We also, let's see here. Okay. Another thing was, hey, how do you pass more interesting data back and forth? And the answer is it's the same way you're doing it now. So let's have the calculator. Let's have the calculator send back a flight also. So we can say data dot put extra and extra flight. Nope. Create a constant and we'll call it flight. And let's see here. I think we have a new flight. Yep. And it has a flight number. We'll just have the sum for that. Okay. Uh, so flight. Okay, so the way this works is and actually, is this any old object? Does it have to be? No, it's serializable. Great. Okay. Quick aside here. I think I mentioned this in the in the lecture, but um, I want to emphasize it here. So objects are objects in Java, and and objects live inside the JVM, right? There's objects. You create them, and you can manipulate them, and you can set their state and all that kind of stuff. They're great things. They're objects. Sometimes you want that object to be able to leave the VM. Now, thinking back to your like project 2 and project 4, when you have your airline and flight objects and you want them to leave the VM, for instance, being written to a file, you've got to convert them to your text format, convert them to your XML format. Well, Java has this built-in has this API called the serialization API. And so the whole idea is that this thing will take an object and turn it into serialize it into a stream of bytes that can be written out someplace. Maybe it's written to a file, maybe it's sent over a socket. Maybe it is just encoded into memory and then read back in again. The whole idea is it uses the reflection API to pull apart your object and encode it in just the right way so that when it's read at the other end of the stream, it can be reassembled and poof, you've got your same object again. The flight class, which extends abstract flight, is serializable. When you mark an interface, when you mark an object with serializable, you're telling the Java runtime is like, hey, you should be safe. You should go and attempt to, it should be okay for you to use reflection and pick out all of the values of the fields and everything like that. Turn it in order to turn it into one of these stream of bytes. And so because the flight class extends abstract flight, which implements serializable. You can use your flight, and the same thing with the airline. It is also serializable. You can use it with APIs that take serializable objects. APIs like the put extra method, which takes a name of the object and a serializable um, Java object. So this means that you can send airlines, you can send flights, and really anything else you want to have implement serializable. You can put that into an intent and send it in between activities. So what we've done here is we've just created a new flight, put it into here, and so now in our main activity, when we when we get our sum from our calculator, when it has a result, not only do we have our sum, but we can also then get our flight, and we can say data dot get parsable extra, get extra, get serializable extra. Oh, that's lame. I'll have to cast it, I guess. Calculator activity dot extra. I did not make it public, or did not make it package protected. Okay, extra flight, and I'll have to cast it probably. Yep. And now I'll just make a toast, and sure, it'll be that context, and then flight, and then I'll just do a flight. Just print out the toString, make that long. And so now, then I run it. Watch my calculator, and then 4 plus 5 equals 9. Now when I send it back, ooh, it crashed. Don't like that. Okay. Let's debug it. Oh, I bet I could look at the log. I bet there's illegal. Darn. Okay, well anyway. I still have that breakpoint. Don't want that breakpoint. Launch calculator. 3 plus 4 equals 7. Return to main. Okay. Okay, so not surprisingly, data has extras. Extras. Unsupported operation exception cannot evaluate toString. Okay, probably. So something is clearly wrong here. Huh. What have I got? That thing, array map of size 2. Support operation cannot evaluate toString. Flight number 7. Oh, I wonder what. I wonder if there's something about the toString method I need to. Oh yeah, probably because I have all of these unsupported operation exceptions. That would do it. So okay, I will. Sure. Return PDX. Destination. Return. Let's go to Vegas. Departure string. Return now, and arrival string later. Oops. Later. Cool. Let's try that again. So what happened there was it actually did serialize the. I think what happened is that it did serialize, deserialize the object, okay. But then when it went to go call toString, I'm sorry, I totally blew past that. ToString calls get source, get departure, get destination, get arrival string, and all of those used to throw unsupported operation exceptions because I hadn't implemented them yet. Now I need to have them implemented. So now when I say 4 plus 5 equals 9, and I go back, oh, sure enough, there it is. It popped up. That is the toString value of the flight for flight number 9. So as you can see, as long as your flight object is serializable, as long as your object is serializable, you can put it as extra data to an intent. And so then you can treat it just like you did your int. And so then you can just use, um, put extra with a serializable and get serializable extra. And you can pass it back and forth with activities, between activities. Any questions on that? Okay. I am going to do this. Pass flight. Let's say flight between activities. Okay, so I need to pick up my daughter at 7:30, but I've only got one more thing to show. Um, I think I'm going to show that, and then do people have lots of questions that they want answered, or do you think this is enough tonight, and we'll sort of end at 7:30?
I had a super quick question.
Yeah, yeah.
Just clarification. So it's just serializable data that you can pass as extras.
As an object, yeah. So rather, in order to make an object that you put in, in order to put an object into into the activity, sorry, into the intent, it needs to be serializable or
Okay.
parcelable, or there was something else, right? There was I think sorry, what am I looking at here? Here. There was also put extra. Oops. Nope. No, that's what I wanted. Sorry. There's also this parcelable. I can't even say it. I think this is the an Android equivalent of serializable. Um, so I think you can also use that. But yeah, serializable is probably is most normal.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay. One last thing. So back to the assignment. Now, one last thing from the assignment. We talked. So one of the things that your program needs to do is to write out the airline that is being edited to a file on disk, and there is there it is. There are APIs to do that. So recall that an Android device has a real operating system. It's Linux there. It has a file system. It has all of this stuff. And so then here is there are all these ways to get at that file system, and this API describes how to do that. So what we want, and, and and also on most Android or many Android devices, they have external storage too, like an SD card and stuff like that, which you can just get. You can use Java APIs to access all that stuff. Of course, you might need special permissions and things like that to access that stuff. So there is one particular. Let's see here. How do we go find that? We just want like app specific storage. I think is fine. App specific files. And then internal storage should be fine. So there we go. From the context, there is a directory called get files dir. And so then let's just see what happens when meh. So here's what we'll do every time, actually the main activity, when we add a new sum, we are then going to say write sums to disk. This will be a new method here. Let's get rid of the GitHub view. And okay, so the first thing we need to do is go get that API I just forgot. So, oh, I think we need to, let's see here, context. I think in this case, context can just be this, maybe? Yeah. And then we'll just have this be called, I don't know, sums.txt. And okay, let's write something out. So let's do our old friend the try block with the auto close, and we'll just have it be buffered writer, I suppose. It doesn't need buffer print writer. There we go. And you can just use your favorite, Java APIs that we've been using since like week 2. New file writer to our file. Oops. And it's probably like throw some exception or something. Add catch clauses. Sure. And here we'll just print a toast or something. Toast. We'll say e.getMessage. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so we have that print writer there, and we're going to just say for int I equals this dot sums dot get count I plus plus. Oh well, no, sorry. I equals 0. While I is less than that, I plus plus, and then we're going to say pw.println this dot sums dot get item I. We're going to print that out, and let's give that a whirl. Oops. That was weird. I don't know how I did that. 4 plus 5 equals 9. Return to main. 0 and 9 are in there. And so in theory, that wrote to the disk. If you look at the device file explorer down here, data app. Nope, it's not. Shoot, I can't remember where it is. Okay. Now it's running under the debugger, and so we can figure out where that file is because I can't remember where it is. It's here someplace. Wait, it's data. Yeah. Edu PDX CS4 J Whitlock. So this one, files, sums. That's today. If I open it up, poof, there it is, 0 and 9. Okay, I didn't need to relaunch it after all. So what that just did is I added some code that wrote out to this file. So this file directory is a second. What this does is it goes and gets this files directory, which is there a? Does it tell me where it is up here? Yeah, it's in data. Basically the package for the app, and then sorry, I got too many Zoom windows. Files, and then sums.txt. So that's where you can write things for your project, and you can read them from the same location. And so then, conceptually, what you could do is you could read that same data back in, maybe on the onCreate, and use that to initially populate your sums list. I'm not going to demonstrate that because you all know how to do that. Plus, I want to wrap things up. But any questions on the on writing stuff to disk? It's actually really easy, right? It's the same APIs that you're used to.
Yeah, sorry. Does it matter in what form we're writing to this?
Nope.
Like XML or okay.
Nope. That being said, I don't know if the XML APIs work with Android. So
Okay.
that's a good point. I give it a try, but like if maybe something does, I'd be surprised if it all compiles. Actually, no. Well, I might be surprised. So if you can't get XML working easily, use text because that uses simple APIs like Java IO and the format and the date formats and stuff like that. So that'll probably work pretty easy if XML doesn't work right off the bat.
Okay.
Okay. So that's all the stuff that I had planned on covering tonight. And as you've probably figured out, these are sort of I hope this gives you sort of enough tricks up your sleeve so that you can adapt them to your projects. But before we end for tonight, are there any specific questions or any topics that I didn't cover that you'd like to know more about? No? Okay then. Uh, that's it. So, I saw a couple comments go by saying that this is kind of cool stuff. I agree. This is fun. This is, this actually feels like developing real software, doesn't it? No more command lines. We finally left the 70s and are here in the 2010s. So, good stuff. So just to recap, we covered a lot of Android stuff tonight. It's all there up in GitHub, and I'll have the recording of class available probably later tonight. And in the meantime, please feel free to reach out on Slack. Oh, and by the way, I discovered there was a bug in the submit script, and so you can't submit right now. I will get on that as soon as I can. So if anybody was ready to submit and finally couldn't, that's my fault. I'll get that fixed because I do want to see your submissions. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you all put together. I will see you next week for the final exam. Remember, there's a written part on Canvas, and then there's also a group part if you'd like to take part in person, which I believe will be an option available to us. Please come by class. In the meantime, have a great week. Enjoy yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye now.
Thank you.